What is the Actors Studio?
Well, some of us think of it as a gymnasium for artists, for theater artists, where we go to work out. It's a workshop, and it was established for professional actors. It's not a school in the sense of beginning actors. It's for professional actors to come in between jobs to delve more deeply into their craft and explore areas of their talent that they might not have an opportunity to explore in the commercial theater, play roles that they might not get cast for, and to grow. It's a place to grow artistically, to develop your virtuosity.
Do you remember the first time you ever heard of it?
Well,
And what drew you to it?
I can't remember the very first time, no. I came to New York from Detroit, where I grew up, in the 1950s. I think about 52, I arrived in New York. And it was, you know, the most famous, not school of acting, because that doesn't quite describe it, but if you were serious about acting, there was no other place to go. Kazan called Lee Strasberg the greatest acting teacher of the century, and I'm absolutely convinced that's true. He certainly was for me.
What made him the greatest acting teacher of the century?
First of all, he had a very keen perception. He could see into you. He could see where you were locked, or where you were stuck, or what areas needed to grow. I'll give you an example. The first time I worked for him, I wrote about this in my book. My memoirs are coming out this month. And the first time I worked for him, the first exercise was to create whatever you have for breakfast. Whatever drink you have for breakfast, orange juice or coffee or a cup of tea, to create it as though it were there. So I created a mug of coffee, and I was busy working on it, feeling the weight of it, feeling the temperature, feeling the size of the cup. And I felt him look at the cards, because he always carried cards with each actor's name. I could see in my peripheral vision he was looking at the cards for a name. And then he said Ellen, and I knew I was about to be x-rayed. And he said, "Do you ride horses?" Now, a question like that from left field, you know he's setting you up for a good one. I said, "Well, I used to ride quite a bit." I went on working on my cup. And he said, "Yes, keep on doing what you're doing. Just answer my questions." He said, "Did you ride well?" I said, "Well, yeah, I rode pretty well. I had my own horse." And he said, "Well, you don't have to ride that cup." And I was stunned. He said, "What would happen if you made a mistake? Go on, make a mistake." And I started crying. I can't tell you why. I started crying, and I cried for about 2 weeks. Now that kind of perception, he went to a internal fear and habit in me that I was unaware of, that he could see, that made me address in myself, what am I afraid of? Why am I afraid to make a mistake? Why is it so crucial for me to be perfect? When of course I'm not. And in exploring those questions, it opened me. So the next time I worked, I was a different actress. I was willing to make a mistake. You have to be willing to make a mistake to go to areas that you've never been to in yourself. You have to be willing to show who you really are and what's there.
Was there a sense among the actors at the actor studio that you were in a special place?
I don't know. I don't know. You mean that I was, or we all were?
That you all were, that you were all part of something that's special.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yes, I mean, the dedication to the Actors Studio is enormous. I mean, because of what we've gotten from it. I mean, when we go to the studio, all of us who had the great privilege of being developed by Strasberg, and the other teachers too, Sandy Meisner and Bobby Lewis, and Kazan, when he taught. We all know that we have a life that we would never have had without it. We have a development as actors, as theater artists, but also as human beings that we never would have had without the exposure to these incredible giants. We give what we can now, we share what we've learned. And we're dedicated to it because we know how important it is.